Tonight on Our News, the mother of the preteen boy that drowned in a Yellow Elder pond facing a judge today, almost a week after his death. Find out the charges that could land her in jail for up to 2 years. Plus, blackouts and water disruptions on Eleuthera leaves islanders uncomfortably up in arms. And later, the story of a Dorian survivor who is calling planned celebrations inappropriate. Welcome to Our News and thanks for joining us. I'm Jamila Missick. The mother of 11-year-old Gerardo Taylor Jr., who police say drowned in a Yellow Elder pond, facing a judge today charged with 2 counts of cruelty to children. 41-year-old Stephanie Hanna, who faces up to 2 years in prison if convicted, has denied criminal responsibility in the drowning death of her son. Children swimming in a pond near the Gulf Academy found the boy's body around 5 p.m. on August 2nd. However, his identity remained unknown for 2 days as no one claimed his body or filed a missing persons report until August 4th. The Exuma Street resident who appeared before Assistant Chief Magistrate Subusolo Swain was granted $7,000 bail and will return to court for trial on November 14th. Hanna is being represented by attorney Michael Hanna. 2 teenagers were today charged with separate murders. 19-year-old Wood Carl Pastor made his initial appearance before Assistant Chief Magistrate Subusolo Swain charged with the July 21st shooting death of Keithon Johnson. The 18-year-old was killed when a lone gunman entered his Peter Street home and shot him. Pastor was not asked to plead and is on remand until November 10th. And 19-year-old Marcian Knowles also appearing before Senior Magistrate Darren Roll Davis, charged with the July 4th murder of 32-year-old Romando Hyler, who was fatally shot as he walked along Quarry Mission Road. Knowles was denied bail and returns to court on October 24th. And a man has pleaded guilty to charges 4 years after a car crash that killed 4 women and wounded 8 others during the 2018 Labor Day parade. 27-year-old Travis Sawyer pleaded guilty to 4 counts of manslaughter by negligence and 8 counts of negligently causing harm before Justice Gregory Hilton. Back on June 1st, 2018, Sawyer's truck plowed into a crowd of people taking part in the parade, resulting in the deaths of 41-year-old Tabitha Hay, 48-year-old Tammy Gibson, 51-year-old Kathleen Fernander, and 55-year-old Diana Gray Ferguson. Sawyer's lawyers Carlton Sherlin QC and Barry Sawyer requesting a probation report to assist the court in determining the appropriate sentence. A sentencing hearing is set for November 16th. In the meantime, Sawyer remains free on $8,000 bail. Kendall Carroll III is the prosecutor. And frustration over on Eleuthera as disruptions in the water and power supplies affecting residents on the island. As for water woes, Bethany McDermott tonight tells us a team from the Water and Sewage Corporation is on the island to address the issue.
Power and water supply challenges making an already hot summer worse for Eleuthera residents who have been plagued with the issue. Central and South Eleuthera Member of Parliament Clay Sweeting says disruptions in the water supply has continued to be a challenge in the area.
We have invested in a 1 million-gallon water tank to be placed in Governor's Harbor to help alleviate some of that issue.
Sweeting insists the aim is to have that water tank installed by November. A concerned resident from that area sent an email to Our News saying residents have gone days without water and power. Officials from the Water and Sewage Corporation are on the ground in Eleuthera addressing the matter.
It was an electrical outage that damaged the boards, and they're here now addressing it as well.
At the time, Bostwick says the plan is to ensure that in times of outages, there is sufficient storage to supply the island.
The most we can do is just we can try to operate to the best we can. But what we did, we start consistent monitoring to ensure that these things are actually kind of cut off before it even happened, that we can act on it much quicker.
As for power outages, last week BPL released this load shedding schedule for Rock Sound in Tarpon Bay, Palmetto Point, Governor's Harbor, South Eleuthera, and other areas for August 4th. However, some residents telling a different tale. Sounding off on social media, this resident says, "Our current in Rock Sound went at 12:50, definitely not 2 p.m., and it's now 4:15 p.m." While this resident says it's almost 5 and still no power in Rock Sound. Today, Sweeting says he's spoken with BPL officials.
Currently, they have enough power generational capacity to keep the island online. They're repairing the last engine, I think, in Rock Sound.
Now, the area MP says he's been in contact with officials from BPL and the Ministry of Works, and they've advised him that the island is in the clear, at least for now. Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
Hot summer nights continue with muggy and hazy conditions expected tonight and into the rest of the week. Meteorologist Greg Thompson, who is in the Weather Center, telling us temperatures are expected to hover around the 90s. Good evening, Greg.
Thanks, Jamila, and welcome everybody for our first look at weather on this first day of the week. Warm evening outside our studios right now. Temperatures in the upper 80s, 87. Partly cloudy skies. The winds are out of the east-southeast at 13 miles per hour. They're a little breezy out there, and you'll feel slight temperature, very warm, 91 degrees on the outside. Satellite view, clouds really across the southeast Bahamas, all associated with a tropical wave that's moving towards the west. That's interacting with an upper-level trough that's been across our area. Dry air mass in the center of that upper-level low, but we have some showers to the north of Grand Bahama as well. Behind that, we have some Saharan dust moving in, so it's going to be a little hazy, a little warm and muggy tonight, and we expect that haze to continue through tomorrow. That's your first look at weather. Your extended forecast is still to come.
When our news comes back, we've got new developments tonight in the Gold Rock saga over on Grand Bahama. Plus, the countdown to back to school is on, but will repair stop some students from heading back to the classroom? And later, we'll tell you why one group of Dorian survivors are not thrilled about upcoming celebrations to mark its 3rd anniversary. It's all coming up when our news returns. Rock, the company at the center of controversy with the Grand Bahama Port Authority, speaking out once again, saying port officials were given multiple chances to meet or speak with the Delzado family before it decided to close its doors. In its most recent statement, the company saying the decision was the result of the GBPA's failure to be transparent, adding that it believes Grand Bahama would thrive under different administrative circumstances. Just last week, F&M leader Michael Pintard urged all involved to lower the tone and temperature in their press releases.
So one of the major suppliers of items required for persons in Grand Bahama to survive, to rebuild their homes, rebuild their businesses, is closing its door. So the consideration has to be on the people, the impact on the island, and as one of my colleagues will discuss, the further impact throughout the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
Pintard is not the only politician to weigh in on this. Last week, the Prime Minister said he had reached out to the family in a bid to see if the issues can be worked out and jobs saved. The Bahamas Educators Managers Union signing a contract with government, making way for brand new benefits for union members. BAMU President Stephen McPhee today detailing some of the new benefits.
We will now receive the benefits of vision and dental as part of our medical plan. As would have been expressed, there's going to be 5 increases of increments over the next 3 years, which has been, since I have been in education, as well as my Secretary General, who've been just a little longer than me, we have never seen in such a short time such massive increase.
Education Minister Glenys Hannah Martin and State Minister for the Public Service Pia Glover-Roll both say the signing shows the Davis administration is committed to the labor movement.
Our children have to be educated. They're the future of this nation. It's not a cliche, it's the reality. our nation will be as good as they are. I want to thank BEMU for understanding the core purpose and for their work on the front line in the delivery of education in this country.
In just 20 days, public school students will head back to classrooms across the country. But parents and teachers have their eye on T.A. Thompson Junior High as a construction team works against the clock to get major structural repairs complete in time for the new academic year. Marlena Leonard visited the campus today.
The countdown to back to school is on as schools reopen on August 29th. But will T.A. Thompson Junior High School be ready? Minister of Education Glenys Hannah Martin says
Our contractors have assured us come the 29th of August, they will be in classroom.
in December 2021, a structural engineer determined that a significant portion of the school's academic building was not structurally sound. So T.A. Thompson's junior high students spent the majority of their spring term using the University of the Bahamas campus for classes. Acting Principal Ishmael Smith says progress is being made.
They have made considerable progress. I think we have a 3-story building where they're doing most of the work. They've poured and reset the aprons for the first and second floor. They're getting ready to finish the structural work to go up to the ceiling. And they are in each of the classrooms that may have received any damage or needed repairs, and they are working.
During the school year, the academic block's classrooms host 95% of the student population of almost 800 students. For that reason, officials say the repairs being complete is imperative to the reopening of the school. And Smith says crews are working around the clock to be ready to welcome students on August 29th.
The construction team is literally working around the clock. I think they even have a night shift. We've made the school available to them, the family and consumer science area, so that they can prepare meals and have everybody on campus and a space for them to be able to do what they have to do as long as they are there.
Reporting for our news, I'm Marlena Leonard.
It's now time for tonight's Financial Market Minute, brought to you by RF, your local investment bank. This has been your Financial Market Minute. To explore the best performing mutual funds in the Bahamas, visit our website at www.rfgroup.com.
Still to come on our news, how the death of one teen diver has brought to light a serious deficiency in the healthcare sector.
Plus, coming up in sports for you tonight, Devin Charlton streaks her way to a silver medal at the Commonwealth Games. We'll also tell you about Jonquel Jones' latest performance. That's all coming up in sports.
And later, some survivors of catastrophic Hurricane Dorian decry upcoming celebrations. Why one group is calling it inappropriate. The details when our news returns. This is our news. Welcome back. The tragic story of a 16-year-old boy who died in Abaco following a crawfish diving expedition, bringing light to an even bigger issue: the lack of proper equipment to save persons who suffer from decompression sickness. Tonight, the Minister for Agriculture and Marine Resources is addressing the unfortunate incident.
I've spoken to the Minister of Health yesterday, and prior to now, we had hyperbaric chambers that were operational, but he asked more specifics on that we should be able to get one operational pretty shortly. through the private sector.
Family members in Abaco are grieving the loss of 16-year-old Randall Sawyer, who died after a crawfish diving expedition. Sawyer reportedly died from decompression sickness, also known as the bends, an issue family members believe could have been avoided had there been a functional hyperbaric chamber in the country. The Bahamian lobster season began on August 1st and ends in March, which means many fishermen will be diving for their catch. Sweeting's advice to those divers:
Decompression illness is something that all divers, especially me being a former fisherman, I've seen persons that's had to get put in a hyperbaric chamber because of this illness, to monitor their dives, to monitor their times, especially in deep water, to ensure that they are able to decompress so that deep water illness will not occur.
As for whether or not lobbying for more hyperbaric chambers is priority, Sweeting says,
as long as we have an hyperbaric chamber that's operational, that should be enough to sustain the amount of persons in our country that would be faced with that illness. It doesn't happen often, but the times that it happens, we wouldn't want anyone's life to be lost because we didn't have the facility to accommodate that.
The Bahamas strikes for silver at the Commonwealth Games. Meanwhile, Jonquel Jones and the Sun take a loss, and the pastors outlast the politicians at Peace on the Street. Marcellus Hall is up now with sports.
All right, thanks a lot, and welcome to our Sports on a Monday, everybody. I'm Marcellus Hall. Well, in case you missed it, we had another outstanding performance at the Commonwealth Games to our total, as yesterday, Devin Charlton competing in the women's 100-meter hurdles. Take a look at her performance now as she gets all the way to the silver medal. Hurdler Devin Charlton on the track at the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham, England. Charlton off to a good start here, runs very, very well. And what do you know, she holds on to second place, becoming the first Bahamian to medal at this year's 2022 Commonwealth Games in the women's 100 meters. Great opportunity there for her as she finishes in a time of 12.58 seconds. Nigeria's Toby Amusin won with a games record of 12.30 seconds. She's also the world champion, so good performance there for her. But Devin gets the Bahamas to silver in the hurdles. Meanwhile, over in basketball, it was Jonquel Jones and the Connecticut Sun. They were in action taking on the Chicago Sky, battle for first and second in the Eastern Conference of the WNBA. Sky at first place, they stay there as they win 94-91. Jonquel, pretty good day for her at the office. 17 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, and a steal in 32 minutes played. As for the Sun, they still remain in second place. Their next game, in case you're wondering, comes your way on Tuesday when they take on the LA Sparks. That game will be held in Los Angeles. Meanwhile, the annual Peace on the Streets basketball tournament, hosting its pastors versus politicians game at the Kendall Geologist Gymnasium last night. Good crowd on hand for this one. And of course, very entertaining, but at the end of the day, it would be the pastors outlasting the guys who sit in the House of Assembly. They have the bragging rights, at least for this year. And there it is, your check on sports for you here on this Monday. I'm Marcellus Hall. Back to you.
Still ahead on our news tonight, celebrations to mark the 3rd anniversary of Dorian, putting some survivors on edge. And don't go away, Greg is back in the Weather Center with your extended weather forecast. That's coming up when our news returns. Welcome back to our news. Last week, the public was informed by the government of a week-long series of events to recognize the 3rd anniversary of Hurricane Dorian ravaging Abaco and Grand Bahama. But some survivors are calling the celebrations far from appropriate. Marlena Leonard reached out to a Dorian survivor for more on this story.
Many Bahamians are speaking out online with their reactions to the Dorian Anniversary Week's events, hosted by the government, including a concert in Nassau with Grammy Award-winning gospel singer CeCe Winans. We spoke to Dorian survivor and former Abaco resident Cara Butler-White. She shares her reaction to the news of the celebrations, a word choice she feels was inappropriate.
It was, to me, a slap in the face, simply because there was no storm here in New Providence. So I cannot fathom what the quote-unquote celebrations are about.
Butler-White says she still suffers from PTSD when it comes to storms, rain, and wind.
For the majority of people, we haven't gotten over it.
While Butler-White herself is a Christian, she says that the gospel-centric concert excludes survivors who aren't of that faith. Butler-White suggests it should be a national day of remembrance, and that the selection of a Grammy Award-winning singer further trivializes the tragedy by choosing to have the big-name concert.
And we have all this pomp and pageantry and showing off, and we forget the message. People died. People suffered, people lost, and people are still struggling with this storm.
The Dorian survivor lived in Abaco for 22 years, but relocated to Nassau after the storm.
I lost my home, my business, and so many friends, because there's still places that look just the same as it did on September the 1st, 2019.
Reporting for our news, I'm Marlena Leonard.
Saharan dust still lingering as hot and hazy conditions continue to dominate the weather this week. We are also watching the tropics for a possible development by the end of this week. Meteorologist Greg Thompson is back in the Weather Center with more in our extended weather forecast.
Thanks again, Jamila, and welcome back, everybody, for our second look at weather. The tropics starting to get a little active out there. Of course, we are now into the second week of August and the peak of the season approaching us by the end of the month into September. Taking a look out in the Atlantic, we're watching a very strong tropical wave that moved off the African coast overnight, and it's now just to the south of the Cape Verde Islands, or the Cabo Verde Islands. The National Hurricane Center watching that, giving it about a 40% chance for formation as it continues to move towards the west. It's anticipated once it gets into the central Atlantic and approaches the Leeward Islands, it's expected to encounter some hostile and some Saharan dust. We do have some of that out there as we speak, but there's a batch of it coming behind as well, behind that system. So we're anticipating some formation over the next couple of days. Could possibly become a depression before the end of the week, but it's expected to run into, as I mentioned, with some hostile conditions. Locally around our area, that upper level low still triggering some showers and isolated thunderstorms. That's interacting with a tropical wave that's just between Hispaniola and Cuba, southeast Bahamas, as well as the Turks and Caicos Islands, seeing some isolated showers and thunderstorms down there. Also, just to the north of the Bahamas, also some showers and thunderstorms, but the whole system will continue to move out towards the west, and the Saharan dust will be moving into our area by tomorrow and into the middle of the week. Boating forecast for the northwest Bahamas tonight to tomorrow. We're asking you boaters to exercise some caution out there. The winds will be out of the east to southeast at 15 to 20 knots. They will be gusting at times. Seas running rough 4 to 7 feet over the ocean. Your low tide will be at 11:55 tonight. For the central and southeast Bahamas, an advisory post for you guys down there. Stronger winds, east to southeast, 15 to 25 knots. Seas running 5 to 8 feet over open waters. Here's a look now at your national forecast. In your 7-day forecast, that upper level low will be moving into the Gulf of Mexico. We could still see some isolated showers and thunderstorms across the area, but that Saharan dust will be moving in across the area. So we're looking at hazy conditions, and it's going to get warm. If you have any ailments or that Saharan dust bothers you, make sure you take the necessary precautions. That's a look at our weather. Make it a safe evening, everybody.
Thank you for joining us for our news tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Jamila Mizik. We'll see you right back here tomorrow night. Have a beautiful evening, Bahamas.